Once you've introduced your villain, the question then becomes, where should they appear after that? Today I'm going to give you 8 different plot points where you can have your villain impact the story. What's up guys, my name's Brandon McNulty. I'm a writer, I've been doing it for 10 years, I've won contests like Pitch Wars and Rev Pit, and welcome to my writing channel. Today we're going to answer the question, where should your villain appear throughout the story? I'm going to give you a number of different plot points, and I'm also going to use the movie Alien as a teaching example. Keep in mind that your villain doesn't have to appear at these different plot points that I'm giving you. Some of them are more mandatory than others, but you do have options, and these are just suggestions for what you can use. The first plot point where you could have your villain affect the story is the inciting incident. This is a moment early on in your story where the hero's everyday world gets shaken up. If you can have your villain be the person who does that, even better, because you're going to establish conflict right off the bat between hero and villain. In the movie Alien, we get to meet the heroes early on. We see that they're crew members on a spaceship and that they're transporting materials, they're waiting for their payday, they have pretty normal lives that we can relate to. But then the inciting incident happens, and this is when they receive a distress signal. Now, the company that hired them, they have a policy where the ship has to respond to distress signals in their area. Now you might say to yourself, well, where's the villain in that plot point? I'm not seeing it, because isn't the villain the alien creature that goes around killing people? And you are right, that is the villain in the story. But Alien actually has 2 villains. The first villain is the obvious one, the xenomorph, the alien creature that's the face of the franchise. But there's also a villain in the background, and that's the company that hired the crew. We don't know this at first that they're a villain, but later on in the story there's a payoff. This inciting incident is the setup to that payoff. The lock-in is basically a moment where the heroes are at a point of no return. They can't go back to their ordinary everyday lives. They've either chosen to go on a journey or they've faced some circumstances where their lives are never going to be the same. In the case of Alien, this is where the crew member Kane stumbles upon the eggs. If you remember from the story, he's curious about these eggs. He takes a look down inside one of them, and then all of a sudden this creature just leaps out and jumps over his face and hugs onto the front of his mask. So this is a lock-in moment because the creature won't let go of his face, and as a result, the other crew members have to bring him on board the ship, and this is eventually going to cause a lot of problems going forward. Pinch points are moments in the story where you remind your audience about the villain. There's usually 2 of them in most stories, and they happen at the 38% mark and the 63% mark. Let's focus for now on the first one, and this is usually a moment that's halfway through the second quarter of your story. So usually around this time, your heroes are responding to what's been happening to them. Maybe they're trying to solve a problem, they're testing out different methods of solving the problem. But if you focus too much on the heroes, then the threat of the villain kind of gets weak. So that's why you need to remind your audience of the villain with a pinch point. In Alien, the pinch point is when the crew realizes that the alien that grappled onto Kane's face is no longer on his head. And that's a key moment because it reminds the audience that the villain can still cause trouble. In this case, it seems like everything's okay, but we still get the sense that something's wrong here. So this triggers the audience's curiosity. It gets them wondering, what is the villain up to? What are they capable of? These are the kind of questions you want to raise at that first pinch point. Now the next villain-related plot point is the midpoint, and this is an important one. And it's important because the midpoint is a moment where you raise the stakes in a story. When it comes to villains, it's a great opportunity to introduce maybe their true motive, or their true powers, maybe some secret abilities, anything that might suggest that the villain is more powerful than they initially seemed. Now in the case of Alien, this is the famous chest burster scene. It's the moment where Kane is, sitting there eating a meal with the crew and everything's fine, and all of a sudden he starts grabbing at his stomach, and everybody thinks, oh, well, maybe he just ate something bad. Then it turns out there's actually something trying to punch its way out of his belly. And this is where we learn what the alien actually did when it was hugging onto his face that whole time. It wasn't harmless. In fact, it actually used him as a means of reproducing. And now there's a baby alien running around the ship. The crew is terrified, and the audience doesn't know what to think. Now the second pinch point is a great opportunity to build on what we learned at the midpoint. So in the case of Alien, this is where you take that idea of the baby alien running around, and what do? You have it grow into adulthood. So pinch point 2 is when the alien runs around the ship killing people, picking them off one by one, hiding in the shadows, all that good stuff. This is a great opportunity for tripping up your heroes, killing off minor characters, creating other minor problems. However, don't kill off any major characters at pinch point 2 because you want to save your knockout blow for a little later. The next plot point is the all hope is lost. This is a great plot point for villains, and I think it's one that your villain should be involved in. Usually this is the part of the story where a mentor dies, or a love interest dies, or somebody loses their job, or somebody gets injured, or any number of major setbacks can occur. In the case of Alien, this is where Captain Dallas goes after the creature with a flamethrower, and he ends up going into the ventilation shafts, but instead of killing the villain, he gets killed himself. And this is a huge loss because not only do they lose another member of the crew, but they lose their leader on the ship. So now the remaining members of the crew are completely outmatched because they've lost their leader, their numbers are thinning down, and they have no clue how to beat this thing. Now the next plot point is what is often called the break into 3 moment, or sometimes it's called plot point 2. Basically it's a moment where the hero gains a vital piece of information that helps them on their journey. This moment won't always involve a villain. However, if your story has a hidden villain or a false ally who betrays the hero, this is a great moment to reveal it. In the case of Alien, this is where Ellen Ripley goes into the control room, she accesses the computer, and she finds out that the company that hired them is not interested in their survival. It's only interested in obtaining the creature that's on the ship killing them. The key thing here is that we see that there's another villain behind the scenes. We've been focusing on the alien for so long that we forgot how the crew got in this situation in the first place. So that setup that was established at the inciting incident, it's now paid off here. The last and final plot point for your villain is the finale sequence. This should be punch and counterpunch between your hero and villain, with both sides striving to overcome the other. And in the case of Alien, even when Ellen Ripley thinks she's won and killed the creature, she hasn't. And this is important because you don't want your villain to be a pushover. Remember that the hero's victory is only as impressive as the villain's struggle. Question of the day: how often do you like villains to appear over the course of a story? Do you like when they appear frequently, like the Joker in The Dark Knight, or do you prefer that they take a backseat to the heroes? Let me know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check out my other videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons for me, and remember to keep on writing.